Transylvania, in the Carpathians. In Bram Stoker's novel Dracula, Jonathan Harker, a real estate agent from England, crosses the Borgo Pass to reach Count Dracula's castle. I felt a little strange, and not a little frightened. I think, had there been any alternative, I should have taken it, instead of prosecuting that unknown night journey. It seemed to me that we were simply going over and over the same ground again. I would have liked to have asked the driver what all this meant, but I really feared to do so. Welcome to my home. I am Dracula.
Dracula.
The world's most famous vampire has been undead for exactly 100 years. Just like the novel, the first film version by F.W. Murnau became a classic. Jonathan Harker's eyes meet the hateful stare of the Count. He hastily flees the vault. Dracula is a mixture of reality, superstition, fearful fantasies, and history. The role model for the novel was an actual Romanian prince, Vlad III, otherwise known as Dracula.
He was a prince, a Romanian prince, who fought all his life against the Turks.
Nobody else in history impaled so many people as the Vlad. The name Dracula comes from Dracul. It means devil. The Library of the National Museum in London. A world of knowledge. This is where the idea for the gruesome classic Dracula originated. The Irish author Bram Stoker studied books concerning medicine, ethnology, and the occult. He studied the geography and history of Eastern Europe, but a suitable main character was yet to be found. By carefully combing through the novel, American historian Raymond McNally came across Bram Stoker's sources. He discovered a book in which much had been written about Vlad III. And so he thought, quite cleverly I think, I will write a vampire novel and the main character will be Tsepish. The Romanian prince Vlad Tsepish and Count Dracula, the vampire. Bram Stoker's novel, they become one. Here is the shocking and frightening history of the wild berserker Prince Dracula, how he impaled people and roasted them, boiled their heads in a kettle, how he skinned them alive and hacked them into pieces, and then drank their blood. Yes, Dracula, the blood is the life.
Ihr Blut ist das Leben.
In Bram Stoker's novel, the vampire travels to England, from where he intends to conquer the world. In the newspapers and journals, Stoker searched for the ideal locations. He also studied accounts of Jack the Ripper, who shocked the British public by brutally murdering prostitutes. The murders remained a mystery, as the Ripper was never found. At the turn of the century, horror stories were in vogue. Stoker knew that if his vampire novel had a contemporary setting, it would be devoured by the public. There were popular vampire novels before Bram Stoker's bestseller. One of them took place in Austria. From Stoker's notes, we now know that he originally wanted the book to be set in Styria.
Dass diesen Vampirroman in Steiermark gespielt werden würde.
But then Stoker became inspired by Transylvanian superstitions and moved the story to the land beyond the forest. Stoker described it as a gloomy mountainous region that was hard to reach and infested with ghosts and the undead. 500 years ago, Vlad III, the historical Dracula, ruled Wallachia. Even today, the people of this area honor his memory. Not far from his fortress lies the village of Corbeni. Vasila Niagu is the town marshal. He has never read Stoker's book. However, he learned about the real Dracula in school. For us Romanians, Vlad III was a great warrior. This monument was erected in his honor. He ensured peace and brought order to the land. Ceausescu in Transylvania, a town that seems unchanged since Dracula's time. This is where in 1431 the Romanian prince was supposedly born. The times were hard. The Ottomans had set out to conquer Wallachia. In the birthhouse of Vlad III is a fresco with the only known likeness of his father, Vlad Dracula. The word Dracula has two meanings, devil and dragon. Dracula means son of Dracula. Dracula, which was the name of Vlad Tzepesh's father, comes from his affiliation with the Order of the Dragon, founded by Emperor Sigismund of Luxembourg. Romania in the 15th century. Between the borders of Islam and Christendom, the Ottoman armies attacked Wallachia and Transylvania. Though Father Dracula occasionally made pacts with the Sultan, Vlad Tzepesh fought them ruthlessly. The Ottoman armies under Sultan Mehmed II were 3 times as large as Dracula's, but Vlad Tzepesh, using a combination of surprised attacks and scorched earth policy, proved himself to be a master of psychological warfare. As the Sultan approached Târgoviște, the capital of Wallachia, he not only saw scorched earth, but something far more terrifying.
Nicht nur verbrannte Erde gesehen, aber etwas viel schrecklicher.
$20,000 people impaled.
Auf Fall gesteckt. Der Sultan hat gesagt,
the Sultan said, "What can I do to one who commits such atrocities?"
Der solchen Dingen tut, ausrichten.
The strategy was successful. The Sultan retreated. The Forest of the Impaled, as it became known, was a gruesome war crime. The victims included Turkish prisoners of war and Dracula's political opponents. From then on, he was known as Țepeș, meaning the Impaler. It is true that Vlad Țepeș was a cruel leader, but cruelty was a political instrument of power. The method of impalement deterred his enemies because it was such a horrendous death. Punishment in the Middle Ages was particularly gruesome. Human life was cheap. Even small offences were punished severely. The high courts had various cruel means of execution, which makes Țepeș's deeds slightly more understandable, if not forgivable. In Western Europe, one of the most common punishments in cases of robbery or murder was to be broken on the wheel. When a delinquent was condemned to death by being broken on the wheel, he was laid on the ground, his arms and legs spread apart. The executioner, standing above him, would throw down an enormous wheel, like a wagon wheel, with an iron blade attached to it. Then the wheeled or broken person was tied to the wheel. The prisoner was then taken outside of the city. The wheel was mounted on a post, and he was left to be eaten by the birds. Torture was commonly used as a means of inquisition. The longer the accused remained silent, the more gruesome the torture. The means of execution was directly related to the severity of the crime. Sawing in half or impaling the accused was seldom practiced. Impaling was a medieval form of execution where the delinquent was placed upon a sharpened spike with heavy weights attached to his arms and legs. The spike would move slowly up through the body until it reached his heart. Târgoviște, Vlad Țepeș's former capital. It was from here that he also tyrannized his subjects. Those who did not pay their taxes were impaled, and he even impaled children. Was it sadism or political savvy? Dracula's great-granddaughter in the 27th generation is of the opinion that the tragic death of his first wife Elizabeth made him bitter.
She did kill herself. We think that part is true, that she was in one of the castles and she received news that he is dead. And out of love for him, she could not stand the idea that he has been killed by the Turks, so she threw herself out the window into a big ravine and she fell into the river and died.
A letter forged by the Turks was the cause of this desperate act. Even today, this section of the river is known as River of the Princess.
Probably all his life he was angry and lonely, but this probably made a big difference. After she died, probably he became really only a warrior and no more a man. He lost all his power for liking people or for loving people and became very, very severe. Since the name also means in Romanian the devil, they nicknamed him like this. So he was Vlad Țepeș Dracula.
As a 13-year-old, Vlad was held hostage by the Sultan. When his brother decided to remain, Vlad was set free. This imprisonment proved to be traumatic.
War bei den Türken für 4 Jahre in Egrigöz.
He was imprisoned in Egrigos, Turkey, for 4 years. A teenager without his mother and father, it was a terrible time.
War es eine sehr schlimme Zeit.
Dracula's hatred of the Ottoman Empire took bizarre forms. Delegates of the Sultan arrived for negotiations at Țepeș's court. They showed a lack of respect by not removing their turbans. Outraged by this insult, he sent them back with their turbans nailed to their heads. But the cruelty of Vlad III is only one aspect of what Bram Stoker used to create his Dracula. The belief in ghosts, vampires and the undead, the netherworld between life and death, is the other part. In the Romanian countryside, many ancient superstitions live on. Unredeemed souls become undead, unable to find peace. They leave their graves by night to terrorize the living. The newly dead are adorned with headbands to prevent possession by evil spirits. The fear of vampires is deeply rooted in Transylvanian folklore. It is said that vampires roam by night to suck the life's blood from sleeping innocents. Those bitten die shortly thereafter. Modern medicine has an explanation on how this myth could have come about. The pathologist Christian Reiter found evidence of a vampire epidemic in Serbia, as reported by military doctors. Ragsorter's disease was the cause of the epidemic.
Es ist, wenn man die ganz alte Literatur über den Milzbrand studiert, dass häufig
in the old literature concerning Ragsorter's disease, there are often descriptions of so-called Ragsorter's carbuncles. These are actually swollen lymph nodes. They are blue, black in color and appear around the collarbone and on the neck. They could look like bites. When one considers the symptoms that the patients described, namely that the life was sucked out of them, it is easy to see how these marks on the throat could be misinterpreted as vampire bites. The afflicted also fantasized about being bitten by the recently deceased, so the bodies were exhumed. What the military doctors found only reinforced their superstitions and fears.
Durch die Auftreibung von Hals und Gesicht kommt es sehr oft zu einer
bloating of the face and neck often caused the head to bend forward so far that the mouth touches the collar. This could create the impression that the undead are so greedy for blood that they bite their own shirt collars. In addition, blood often seeps from the mouth and nose. This is accompanied by smacking noises, which are in fact the putrescent gases bubbling up from inside the body. This was perceived as the undead, smacking their lips in the grave, and the blood oozing from their mouths and noses was that of their victims. The mysterious deaths caused hysteria. The means by which these supposed vampires were neutralized is reminiscent of a horror movie.
Es war daher auch nicht unüblich, in diesem Kulturbereich verantwortliche Untote.
It was not uncommon in this region to make the undead harmless by decapitating them, driving stakes through their hearts, and burning the corpses. In this way, the evil was dispelled.
Das Übel beseitigt wird.
A superstition that persists until today. Many still fear that the powers of darkness can influence their fate.
In Romania, people believe in Strigoi, which is a little different thing from vampire. It's not the same thing as the Dracula legend and the big vampire with long teeth. Strigoi are evil spirits who attack people, lonely people, or small children.
A cloister in the Borgo Pass. It is in this mystical place that Bram Stoker's count had his castle. Here, when children are possessed by demons, the nuns still perform exorcisms to drive out the evil spirits. It takes a long time for healing to take place. When children have to pay for the sins of their parents, demons can enter their bodies. These children are then damned. In order to drive out evil, we perform a holy mass. One also has to pray and fast a lot.
Prin post, prin rugăciune foarte multă.
Sunset. It is the hour of ghosts and vampires. It is then that Paul Diane goes to work. He has devoted his life to fighting the powers of darkness and protecting the innocent. Diane knows that vampires lurk in the streets of Bucharest, and that these deceitful bloodsuckers can adopt various forms. This is my trumpet. The sound brings the vampire's blood to a boil. It increases their thirst for blood, and I can feel it immediately. The full moon makes Diane's quest particularly dangerous, because as everyone knows, this is when vampires are especially thirsty. My father was killed by a vampire. He was only 50 years old. My first steak was stolen by a vampire. It had even been sanctified. I know that some people think I'm crazy, but I say that lunatics and children are closest to the truth. Only at dawn, when the spirits disappear, will Diane sleep. But vampires are not only a spiritual problem. They may also rouse other desires. In Bucharest's sexy club, these lovely creatures of the night don't only raise goosebumps. Dracula's playmates don't suck the guests' necks, but they do lighten their wallets. Bucharest's underworld seemed to enjoy this risque approach to folklore. What punishment might the medieval prince have imposed?
I think it's normal that a country will use what it has to bring in tourists and to bring in people, and Vlad Tepes does bring in people, the Dracula part at least.
In Romania, Dracula is omnipresent. As the Prince of Darkness, he has become world famous. The kitschy souvenirs of Vlad Tepes would not sell nearly so well without the help of the blood-sucking count. Vampire tourism in Romania is booming. Commercial Dracula tours bus tourists from all over the world to more or less historical locations. One of the main attractions is the restored Bran castle in Transylvania.
It's very new, it's not original. They changed, no? They painted, they... I like this castle.
It's interesting how a novel can completely change the image of an entire region.
Yes, we've heard of Dracula. We've seen many movies.
Yes. You like Dracula movies?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
The fact that Vlad Tepes never lived in Bran castle doesn't seem to bother anyone. In the newly erected Dracula Hotel at the Borgo Pass, the hordes of tourists are guaranteed a horrifying stay. Key events in Dracula's life are depicted on the walls of the hotel's crypt. Dracula as a comic book hero. It is yet to be determined if vampires have good taste. Bram Stoker's novel can also be experienced on a gut level. One may share Jonathan Harker's unease with this cold-cut platter, just like the one he ate before setting out to Dracula's castle. Poenari, the real Castle Dracula. Few take the trouble to visit it. Even before Western tourists started retracing Dracula's steps, Vlad Tepes had experienced a rebirth in Romania. In 1976, Nicolae Ceausescu commissioned a postage stamp in honor of Vlad Tepes. The dictator used the national hero for his own purposes.
Ceausescu's Modell war ja selbstverständlich Stalin.
Ceausescu's role model, of course, was Stalin, but he could not say that. Stalin had already been compromised. To go along with his ideology of nationalist communism, he had to find appropriate national heroes. He came across Vlad Tepes. This was so frightening that suddenly a tyrant had become a national hero.
Ein Tyranne als nationaler Held so auftaucht plötzlich.
Vlad Tepes's radiance should have reflected on the dictator. That Ceausescu compared himself with Vlad Tepes was unbearable for the Romanian aristocracy in exile in Paris.
One really saved the country from outside invasion, and the other one destroyed the country from inside. So this I don't like at all.
It all ended in December of 1989. By then, Ceausescu was seen as a vampire sucking the life out of his own people. It is an ironic twist of fate that Ceausescu fled to Târgoviște, where Tepes, his self-appointed role model, once ruled. It was here that he and his wife Elena were captured and executed. Romania does not want to remember the bloody times of the dictatorship. Bucharest would once again like to become the Paris of the East. However, Ceausescu's megalomania significantly changed the skyline. Grey cement tenements dominate the few remaining patrician houses. In hard times, there is often a call for strong leadership. Dracula is still considered a national hero, and his cruel deeds are disregarded. Vlad the Impaler stands for wealth and economic security. For us, he was a very good ruler, as he brought justice and civilization to the people of Romania. At least we see him in this way. Magnificent buildings and poverty. Everyday life in Romania is a war against rapidly increasing inflation. Even the Romanian army has chosen to honor Tepes. The Dracula helicopter will be produced in Romania, modeled after the US Cobra attack helicopter. In the minds of many Romanians, Dracula is thought of as having been particularly authoritarian, but also as a ruler who successfully fought crime. Legend has it that if someone lost a sack of gold on the street, they would still be there the next day. In the legend, bloodthirsty despotism evolved into a system of justice and order. But Dracula also had many enemies. As his influence increased, the king of Hungary, Matthias Corvinus, began to fear Dracula's power, so he had the prince arrested. During his 12-year imprisonment, Vlad Tepes was obliged to convert to Catholicism. The Orthodox Church never forgave him.
To get out of prison, he made some compromises. He married one of the daughters of the king of Hungary.
Once again allowed to rule as a prince, his cruelty continued, but this time he impaled with the Pope's blessing. After all, Tsepish was protecting his country from Islam. The Orthodox Church reacted differently. As punishment for his blasphemy, Dracula was excommunicated. Banishment from the church meant becoming one of the undead, forever unredeemed. This part of the legend fit well into Bram Stoker's research, as he had previously wanted to call his book The Undead. The vampire Dracula is only able to survive the daylight hours in a coffin, but Stoker's contemporaries also had a very realistic fear of becoming one of the undead, mistakenly buried alive. In order to prevent premature burials, it was ordered that a corpse could only be buried after a period of 3 days. There were also many inventions to prevent being buried alive. In the coffin, a string was attached to a finger, which would sound a bell in case the dead person woke up. During epidemics, a knife was often driven through the heart to ensure that the plague victim was really dead. Today, forensic medicine can without a doubt determine whether death has occurred. But what never fails to astound the experts is how the dead can seem alive.
Es ist aber so, dass Personen, die über viele Monate beerdigt
It is so that people who have been buried for many months can be in amazingly good condition once the grave has been opened. This is astonishing for everyone. Even the experts are surprised when after several months of burial, an almost completely preserved corpse is discovered. It's spooky. The symbol of the cross plays a significant role in the fight against vampires. In the movies, it is a potent weapon against the damned.
Wir sind stark im Herrn und in der Kraft seiner Macht. Wir sind stark im Herrn und in der Kraft seiner Macht.
In order to prevent corpses from becoming undead, they were often placed face down in the coffin. According to the belief, it was then impossible for the dead to return to this world. According to legend, the vampire's strength begins to weaken as sun rises. In vampire literature, it is often virgins who trap the bloodsuckers. They sacrifice themselves, bewitching the vampire until morning. But the superstition of deadly sunlight may have a medical explanation. The Viennese dermatologist Herbert Hönigsmann believes the illness Porphyria to be behind many vampire superstitions. Those afflicted with Porphyria must avoid sunlight as it destroys their skin.
Es ist auch so, dass der Porphyriker ihnen beschreibt, wenn in die Sonne geht.
Those afflicted with Porphyria describe a terrible burning sensation whenever they go into the sun. A healthy person might, after laying in the sun for several hours, get a painful sunburn. But those with the disease describe unbearable burning sensations after only 5 minutes of exposure. Porphyria is a genetic disease that also causes a surplus of the blood component porphyrin. It was not discovered until the 20th century, but has appeared at least since the Middle Ages. Due to the symptoms, people naturally assumed the afflicted were vampires. The disease also might explain why garlic was used against bloodsuckers.
Im Knoblauch gibt es Substanzen.
Garlic contains substances that can cause an attack of porphyria, mental confusion, for example. The people knew this and had what we would consider to be an unreasonable fear of garlic. Another symptom is periodontitis. The gums recede, making the teeth appear longer. Due to porphyrin deposits, the teeth also seem to glow.
Bei diesen Menschen ganz die Fluoreszenz
Fluorescence of the teeth was especially apparent, which means that in the light, the teeth would glow a red-orange color. If a strong light suddenly hit an afflicted person, the effect was particularly gruesome. Also, when patients had attacks, they were capable of committing violent acts. Porphyria has various symptoms. Today, one method of treatment is bloodletting. In other cases, blood transfusions are given. Previously, the drinking of animal blood was said to have provided relief. In any case, the illness can only be transmitted if both the father and mother are carriers. Due to inbreeding in isolated villages and among royalty, the disease was probably more common in the past.
Also es ist so, dass in der historischen medizinischen Literatur vermutet wird, dass in Transylvanien
in historical medical literature, it is assumed that in some villages in Transylvania, inbreeding was particularly common due to intermarriage. The Porphyria genes became so concentrated in the population that there were epidemics of the disease. Aside from all the horror, vampires are also considered erotic. This part of the vampire myth can also be explained scientifically. From the observations of the military doctors, it was discovered that not only did the corpses smack their lips and appear to be well nourished, they had also shed their skins, revealing new skin underneath. The doctors went on to describe that the male vampires presented wild signs of erections. From a pathologist's point of view, the explanation is quite simple. Putrescent gases cause the penis to distend, thereby making it appear erect. In the 20th century, eroticism became more and more prominent. Today, the bedroom scene between Dracula and Mina is interpreted more freely. Stoker's vampire is a seducer with dark desires.
Die Szene zwischen Dracula und Mina ist Oralsex.
The scene between Dracula and Mina is really oral sex. He has drunk her blood and shows her how she must then drink his.
Sie, wie sie sein eigenes Blut trinken muss.
I think it is simply an orgasm, the satisfaction of controlling another person, taking complete control. Steve Barton plays the lead in the new musical Dance of the Vampires, which premiered in Vienna. 30 years after his tremendous film success, director Roman Polanski has resurrected his Undead for the stage. As in the film, the emphasis is on comedy rather than horror.
You know, it's funny and it's romantic and it's scary from time to time in a comfortable way. It's a fairy tale.
Lead actor Steve Barton at a makeup rehearsal. He has gained insight into the role of the vampire count. He is addiction personified. We are all addicted to something. Food, sex, drugs, alcohol. For me, he is simply the personification of addiction.
Ist einfach der allergrößte Verkörperung des Süchtigkeits für mich.
Barton is so into his role that often he doesn't see himself in the mirror anymore. For Polanski, his first musical production is an adventure.
By definition, the musical is a stage and uses different means of expression. Story is the same, but visually it will be totally different. And of course, will be different for your ear because it's sung and because there's music in it.
Novels, films, plays, paintings, and now even a musical. The vampire has conquered all genres. The final chapter of Dracula's legend can be found on the island monastery of Snagov. In contrast to Stoker's vampire, the real life of Vlad Tepes had little of the occult. The only mystery is his death. He was supposedly assassinated, his head preserved in honey and presented to the Turkish Sultan, who then had it placed on a stake. The prince's remains are supposedly buried in the monastery's chapel, but in 1931, a team of explorers found only animal bones after digging up the grave. His unexplained death, the missing body, all this nourishes the myth surrounding Dracula. Is Vlad Tepes immortal? Even today, some Romanians still hope that Dracula will rise again and save his people in times of great need.
Even nowadays, they use expressions such as we would need somebody like him now to make the country better and to use, he's not quite the same means, of course, but to make the country okay. So in this way, yes, I'm proud.
The medieval prince will live forever in the hearts and the minds of the Romanian people. In the novel, however, Dracula turns into dust after having his throat slit by Jonathan Harker with a sanctified dagger.